Die Hard might seem like a movie that was of its time, but in reality, the filmmakers took a big bet on an unknown leading man that would re-characterize what an action hero looks like and become a classic. A Christmas classic. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. Die Hard follows John McClane, a cop from New York City, but he happens to find himself in LA so that he can attend his wife's office holiday party. And he really hates California.
California.
Merry Christmas!
California. Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
But the real problem is that John's marriage is struggling and the long-distance relationship isn't helping. And if you're wondering why John couldn't just become a cop in LA to support his wife's career, well, John's got a great explanation for you.
Why'd you come with her, man? What's up?
Because I'm a New York cop. I got a 6-month backlog of New York scumbags I'm still trying to put behind bars. I can't just pick up and go that easy.
Apparently, he is personally responsible for every single scumbag criminal in the Big Apple. But when he comes for the holiday party, he is officially on vacation. At least until a group of thieves, led by Hans Gruber, break into the building to steal from the company. And they're just rude enough to do it while John is half-dressed and barefoot. But even with that disadvantage, Hans and his team were not prepared to have a cop in the building. John starts to mess with their little heist. Now, there's been a lot of debate over the years as to whether or not Die Hard should really qualify as a Christmas movie. Here are my arguments for. First, the company's holiday party plays a key role in the movie's plot. Hans Gruber deliberately picks this time for his heist because he knows there won't be anybody in the building except for the employees, which he can use as hostages. It also gives a legitimate reason for John McClane to be there unexpectedly. Second, the holiday party isn't just briefly mentioned for a plot device and forgotten. The movie is constantly reminding us that it's the holidays.
You got any Christmas music?
This is Christmas music.
This last one's gonna take a miracle.
It's Christmas, Theo. It's the time of miracles.
Merry Christmas.
At one point, John McClane even sends a dead man down the elevator wearing a Santa hat and writes "Ho ho ho" in his blood.
Ho, ho, ho.
If that doesn't feel like holiday spirit, I don't know what is. It's pretty difficult now to imagine anyone in the role other than Bruce Willis, but this was not the initial plan. The very first offer went to Frank Sinatra, who was 70 years old at the time. Why? Because Die Hard is actually based on a novel called Nothing Lasts Forever. And this novel is actually a sequel to another novel called The Detective. And 20th Century Fox had adapted The Detective for a 1968 film that had starred Frank Sinatra. So the studio was contractually obligated to offer the role to Sinatra again. Thankfully he declined, but can you imagine? The role was then offered to tons of popular stars at the time. It started off with your typical macho man action stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. But other actors that were considered before Bruce Willis were also Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford, Paul Newman, even Al Pacino. When they finally came to Willis, he was mostly known for comedy TV, which is why it was crazy that he was offered $5 million for the role, which was usually what highly established actors made. The rest of the industry criticized the decision and thought Die Hard was going to be a poor investment. And if you were to go by the critic reviews at the time, you might think they were right. It got mixed reviews, with a lot of critics claiming that it was just dumb entertainment, with any of the political commentary from the novel removed. And Die Hard never became the #1 movie at the box office, but what it did do is stay in the top grossing films for months on end. It soon cracked the top 10 highest grossing movies that year and was nominated for 4 Oscars. So why did this resonate with wider audiences? Well, first and foremost, it's a really fun action movie. It's just one sequence after another of John McClane trying to get the upper hand on the thieves in a game of cat and mouse.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Sometimes he wins and sometimes he loses, so there's a great tension in the back and forth. Second, John McClane may seem to us now like a standard action movie character with all of his one-liners.
Welcome to the party, pal!
But this portrayal of the everyman type of character was a newer thing at the time. This is why the role was initially offered to people like Stallone or Schwarzenegger. The Macho Man was the standard. Bruce Willis is in pretty decent shape here, but he's not a bodybuilder. That plus his sarcastic portrayal really connected with people in making him feel like an ordinary guy caught up in an extraordinary situation. And to come back to John's feelings about his wife's career, in the end, he does a full 180 and admits he should have supported her.
When things started to pan out for her, I should have been more supportive. When you tell her that John said that he was sorry.
It's a nice arc for the character, but also goes a long way in making McClane distinct. He's not only separate from the typical action movie star in his physicality, but also because he's willing to admit he's wrong when it comes to the importance of his wife's career over his own. But as they say, a hero is only as good as their villain. Alan Rickman's portrayal of Hans Gruber was another massive reason this movie was appealing to audiences. And again, this might be a case where we watch it now and it feels like a pretty common type of villain, but it's actually a case where this movie was at the start of a new trend in film. Villains in action movies at the time tended to be straightforward, more objectively evil. They might be threatening, but they weren't all that charming or clever or polite. Rickman brought all these elements to create an antagonist that was calculating and intellectually threatening.
All of you relax. This is a matter of inconvenient timing, that's all. Police action was inevitable. And as it happens necessary, so let them fumble about outside and stay calm. This is simply the beginning.
Which served as the perfect counterpoint to John McClane's improvisational, often physical response to the situation. So both of these actors really brought unexpected but complementary portrayals to the story that went a long way in connecting it to the audience. And on top of that, they did some of their own stunts. Bruce Willis's first day of filming was the scene where he escapes an explosion by jumping off a roof while tied to a fire hose. And for Gruber's death scene, they dropped Alan Rickman from at least 20 feet in the air onto a blue screen airbag. He was told they would drop him on 3, but the director dropped him early to see if he could catch Rickman off guard, and that's the shot that's in the movie. Die Hard only seemed to grow in popularity over the years until it was retroactively considered by film analysts and audiences as one of the best action movies of all time, despite the initial mixed reception. It also spawned a bunch of knockoffs. Plenty more movies came out that featured an underdog hero in a confined environment where they had to thwart the bad guy's plan against all odds. It came to be a joke in Hollywood to say, it's Die Hard on a blank. So Speed was Die Hard on a bus, Air Force One was Die Hard on a plane, Under Siege was Die Hard on a battleship. Paul Blart Mall Cop is like the comedy version of Die Hard. And on top of that, there were 4 sequels. So it turns out that the studio's $5 million bet on Bruce Willis as an alternative kind of protagonist to the standard 80s action hero more than paid off. But if using a holiday office party as a way to capture hostages and steal money isn't enough holiday in your holiday movies, our next week's pick should make up for that. The Holdovers takes place at a boarding school. On the holidays, most of the boys get to go home for break, but a few unlucky kids end up having to stay at school, such as Angus Tully. They're known as the Holdovers. Assigned to look after the kids is the grumpiest teacher on the entire staff, Mr. Hunnam. Mary Lamb, the school's cafeteria manager, is also staying behind to make sure the holdovers are fed. Together, they have to try and make the holidays not miserable for a bunch of kids that were essentially left behind. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. Pay attention to the dynamic between Mr. Hunnam, Mary, and Angus. How are they different? How are they similar? What is the core of their relationship? How does Mr. Hunnam view the students at this school? How does Mary? How do their backgrounds play into their perspective? Why do you think Mr. Hunnam makes the decision that he does at the end? Do you agree with the decision? So let's chat about Die Hard in the comments, and I'll see you back here next Sunday to discuss The Holdovers. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.